Trump intends to use a cockamamie legal theory devised by right-wing think tanks to threaten your citizenship and rule this country as an unchallengeable dictator. To understand his scheme, you've got to understand that the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to the Constitution are called the Reconstruction Amendments because they were designed to put America back on track after the Civil War. The Civil War was about slavery. No serious scholar doubts this. All the southern states that rebelled and left reasons in their declarations of independence, their equivalent documents, cited slavery as the reason they were leaving the Union. They could not stand the idea of having Lincoln as president, even though Lincoln didn't have any power to threaten their interests in the lives of other human beings at the time. But they created it for them by blundering stupidly into the Civil War. And I hope we are not in the same situation now, but signs seem to be pointing toward that, because it is the very Reconstruction Amendments that Trump wants to use against the citizens of the United States. Slavery having been the cause of the Civil War, the Congress wanted to ensure that it would never again be the source of a civil war. And to do that, they wanted to settle once and for all the fact that black people in the United States of America were citizens equal to all others. And so the 13th Amendment outlawed slavery itself, and the 14th Amendment guaranteed citizenship to every person born on U.S. soil, with one little caveat. And this is the place where the right-wing nutjobs think they have struck gold, and this is how Trump thinks he can deprive you of your citizenship. And it doesn't just apply to black people. All of us have our citizenship guaranteed through the 14th Amendment, because it codified a long Anglo-American tradition whereby a person was the citizen of the Anglo-American country on which they were born. Not all countries of the world use that system, but in England, going back to the Middle Ages, that was the system, and that was the system that all the states adopted here, and that the Constitution implicitly recognized. They never bothered to do anything about it, didn't need to, until people had challenged the citizenship of fellow Americans. And that's where the 14th Amendment came into place. Now, there was a little bit of wiggle room in here because of one simple fact. Foreign ambassadors have diplomatic immunity. They and their families are immune from arrest and prosecution and conviction and punishment in our country, just as our ambassadors are immune in other countries. You would not want to be an ambassador to a foreign country if you could be arrested on some trumped-up charge and punished. And that's the reason for diplomatic immunity. So the 14th Amendment, recognizing this, does not purport to exercise jurisdiction over the children of ambassadors, and it says that citizenship is guaranteed to every person born on U.S. soil and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. This phrase, "and subject to the jurisdiction thereof," is what the Trumpers think is an opportunity to deprive you of your citizenship. What they want to do is say that if your parents did not have a lawful immigration status, and what that actually means to a lawyer is if you can't prove your parents had a lawful immigration status, then when you were born, it makes no difference if you were born on U.S. soil, you aren't a citizen, and we can do other bad things to you. The very fact that they want to be able to force you to prove this is problematic for a number of reasons, right? If someone challenges where I'm born, well, the first thing I would do is I'd try to trot out my birth certificate and prove that it's my proper birth certificate and that I was born in such and such place and it's got the official seals and so forth, and I would try to introduce that into court. But remember what happened to President Obama? That wasn't good enough for them. In fact, now the same nut jobs are trying to challenge Kamala Harris. These people are obsessed with trying to deprive others of their citizenship. So a birth certificate might not cut it. Well, I could my mother still being alive, I could summon her into court. You know, where were you on my birthday? What was going on? Right? Is that baby the same person I am? And so forth. You'd have some witnesses maybe, right? The physician who delivered me has long since received his reward, but there might be other witnesses to my own birth. But that's not what you would have to prove in court under the Trumper theory. You would have to prove your parents' birth. You would have to prove your parents' immigration status. You would basically have to prove that they were not immigrants, that they were not out of status, right? Especially after they've compiled some list that says, oh, these people are out of status persons, and they could just copy all the phone books from the old days into their computer database and say that we want to challenge the citizenship of all these people. So you would have to prove not only your own birth and its circumstances, but that of your parents. This is a practically insurmountable obstacle for many citizens of the United States. And that's precisely the test to which the Trumpers hope to put you in order to classify you as less than a citizen so that they can do certain things to you. Now, this is extremely problematic in an era in which Trump has openly pledged to be a dictator on day one, has talked about suspending the Constitution. And this is one of those cases. He has actually stated that he wants to suspend by executive order that portion of the 14th Amendment which guarantees your birthright citizenship. The fact that this is a legal impossibility doesn't mean anything in an environment in which the checks and balances have dissolved, and that's the situation we are in now. He has appointed a Supreme Court that doesn't care about any of that stuff. They don't care about precedent, and they don't seem to care about the law. And this is a huge problem, because even when it functioned, we have had times in American history when presidents have done unconscionable things, not only to aliens, but to Native people, and expressly Native people, in the case of Andrew Jackson. A lot of people have heard of the Trail of Tears. He ordered people uprooted from their houses and stole their farms and forced them to march to Oklahoma. It took away everything they had, even though they were absolutely born in this country and their ancestors were going back for tens of thousands of years. The Supreme Court said you can't do that. And Andrew Jackson said, well, let the Supreme Court enforce it. They made their order, let them enforce it. See, that is a weakness of our system when people disregard their oaths. When they don't do what they're supposed to do, there are no checks and balances, because the Supreme Court doesn't have its own army. The Supreme Court, believe it or not, doesn't even have a federal marshal system. That isn't how it works. The trial courts exercise equity power in the United States. It's a long story. But the bottom line is they're the ones that can make court orders and enforce them. The Supreme Court gives opinions that judges are oath-bound and duty-bound to follow. But if they don't, there's no federal marshal coming knocking on their door, because the Supreme Court doesn't have that sort of power, neither do appellate courts. The Trumpers see these things as opportunities to deprive you of your citizenship. Jackson did it to U.S. citizens. The Supreme Court couldn't stop him because it didn't have the physical power to stop him. The only thing that stopped Trump from taking over the government the last time was General Milley. Look up his speech where he says, we don't take an oath to a president or a king or a dictator or a wannabe dictator, right? We take an oath to the Constitution. If General Milley had not upheld his oath and stopped Trump from bringing in the troops he requested to aid in his insurrection, we would be in a world of hurt right now. The Civil War would be reopened. And reopening the Civil War is exactly what the Trumpers want to do, and that is exactly what is at stake in this election. If they have any pretense by which they can retake power and seize control of the levers of force, they will use it. And the suspension of the 14th Amendment by executive order is one of the legal pretexts by which Trump has pledged to usurp power. Look it up. He is on the record saying this, and very recently. Not only that, but every Republican member of Congress, every single one of them, has signed on to some version of a constitutional amendment which would end birthright citizenship, throwing everyone's citizenship into question. Yours, mine, everyone's. And that's what they want to do. Because if they can tie you up in court trying to prove you're a citizen, there is nothing they can't do to you in the meantime. Why would Republicans do this? Are they all insane? Are they all plotting to overthrow the government? Not necessarily. One of the tricks congressmen use so that they can tell their constituents they voted for this, that, or the other thing that they don't really want to pass is they make different versions of the same thing. And that's what the Republicans have done in this case. They've each signed on to different versions of constitutional amendments designed to strip your citizenship. But make no mistake, some of them really mean it. Some of them definitely want to see this thing happen, and they see that as their route back to power. They want to take away your citizenship and disenfranchise their presumed opposition. You cannot let this happen. Trump is a criminal. He is a felon. He attempted to overthrow our government once. He wants to do it again. He openly says so, and they will use any cockamamie legal theory that's out there in order to do so. Don't give up your citizenship. Vote for President Harris. Today, I would like to explain how Trump intends to use a cockamamie legal theory devised by right-wing think tanks to threaten your citizenship and rule this country as an unchallengeable dictator.